It is my honor to introduce our distinguished speaker, Dr. Sara Al-Hilali. She is an outstanding member of our cornea and anterior segment division and has been a valuable addition to our team since she has joined. Dr. Saida is known for her proactive approach, for her strong sense of responsibility and deep commitment to the patients, the hospital, and the environment. She is always at the forefront of adopting new technologies and innovative approaches in her practice, which makes her the perfect person to guide us through our talk today. Without further ado, I invite Dr. Sara to take the floor and share her insights on sustainability and green vision in ophthalmology. I assure you, this is not going to be just another green talk. I think it's going to be a very inspiring and impactful talk. Thank you.
Assalamu alaikum, everyone, and good afternoon, and thank you all for being here today. So, I've been thinking about what topic to present for this Grand Round lecture for quite some time now. I wanted to choose a topic that's not only important, but relevant to all healthcare practitioners. So, after much thought, I truly believe that the topic I'm about to discuss is one of the most important and relevant topics and issues that we face nowadays. So, today we'll be exploring green vision, advancing sustainability in ophthalmic care, where we'll look at how we as healthcare practitioners can contribute to a more sustainable practice in our field. So, we'll cover how sustainability intersects with healthcare, discuss specific environmental challenges within ophthalmology, and explore ways we can minimize our environmental impact while maintaining the highest standards of care. So, before I begin, I'd like to say that I'm not an expert in the field of sustainability. However, I believe that this is an important topic that deserves attention. So, my goal today is to share evidence, raise awareness, and initiate conversations around sustainability in our field, with the hope of encouraging thoughtful considerations and actions for greener future in ophthalmic care. So, this is what I'll be covering today. Why should we care? What's the impact? How can we be better? And what are the challenges that we might face when applying sustainability in our field? And at the end, I'll share with you a case study of the perfect example of sustainable eye care model. So, before we dive into today's topic, I want to begin by emphasizing the importance of sustainability in healthcare, especially as it relates to global and national goals. The United Nations Sustainability Development Goal serve as a global framework to create a better and more sustainable future. Several of these goals are related to health and climate action and responsible consumption, and directly impacts the healthcare sector. So, as medical professionals, we have an important role to play in achieving these goals. So, not just by improving the patient outcome, but also by minimizing our environmental footprint of the care we provide. This focus on sustainability is also deeply rooted in Saudi Arabia's Vision 2030. Saudi Arabia's vision sets ambitious targets for the environmental sustainability. The vision calls for reducing emissions, conserving resources, and fostering a green and sustainable economy. And a key part of this vision is Saudi Arabia's goal of achieving net zero emissions by the year 2060. So, this reflects the country's commitment to combating climate action or climate change while advancing the national development. Supporting this effort, His Excellency Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman launched the Saudi Green Initiative. It's a comprehensive program aimed at reducing carbon emissions, increasing reliance on renewable energy, and resorting the natural environment. This initiative is a cornerstone of Saudi Arabia's environmental strategy, including goals to plant billions of trees, drastically reducing carbon emissions, and support sustainability in every sector, including healthcare. So, today we'll explore how we, as ophthalmic care providers, can contribute to these national and global sustainability goals. Climate change has led many countries and institutions around the world to declare a climate emergency, pushing for change across various sectors in society to reduce greenhouse gases. But what exactly is climate change? Essentially, it refers to the long term change in our climate pattern caused by shifts in the environment. Now, these shifts can come from natural processes, but we must also recognize that human activity is a major contributor. So, when we talk about human activity, we're referring to burning of fossil fuels, deforestation, and industrial processes that emit those greenhouse gases, which in turn accelerates the global warming. And global warming isn't just about warmer summers. It brings a host of challenges like heat waves, floods, droughts, and air pollution. And the impact on health is alarming. We've already seen rises in cardiovascular diseases, respiratory diseases, infectious diseases, and even mental health issues as people face resource shortages and emotional stress due to these environmental changes. Another important concept to understand is the carbon footprint. Simply put, this is the best estimate we have of the impact of a product, process, or organization has on climate change. It's measured as carbon dioxide equivalent, and it includes emissions of seven key greenhouse gases. But the major culprit among these gases is carbon dioxide, which makes up around 86% of all gas emissions. So, this is why you often hear carbon emissions or carbon footprint used interchangeably. So, why should we care? Now, let's start with the larger picture here. The WHO has made it clear that the climate change is not just an environmental crisis, it's a health crisis as well. In fact, last year, they released a statement that climate change is the leading health threat facing humanity. And according to their estimate, between 2030 and 2050, climate change is expected to cause 250,000 additional deaths per year. And this is due to malnutrition, malaria, diarrhea, and heat stress. That's a staggering number. And beyond the loss of life, the direct damage costs to health are expected to increase to between 2 and 4 billion US dollars per year by the year 2030. And these are costs that the healthcare systems around the world may not be able to sustain, especially in resource constrained settings. So, again, why should we care? When we talk about sustainability in Islam, it's important to understand that the principles of environmental stewardship are deeply rooted in the teachings of Islam. The Quran encourages the protection of nature and the responsible use of resources. And one of the key concepts is the idea of khilafah, or stewardship, which refers to the humanity's responsibility to care for the earth as custodians. Islam teaches us to avoid waste and to live in harmony with nature, reminding us that every creation, no matter how small, has a purpose. And this aligns closely with the modern ideas of sustainability. So, this encourage us to live in sustainability, encouraging us to live in a way that meets with our needs without compromising the ability of future generations to meet theirs. So by embracing these values, we can contribute to a more sustainable world while honoring our faith. So what's the impact? Now let's consider the role of healthcare in contributing to this crisis. So, the healthcare sector itself is responsible for 10% of the global greenhouse gas emissions. Yes, you heard that right. The very sector that exists to heal and protect is also a significant contributor to the problem. The healthcare sector is a significant consumer of resources, energy, water, and material, and it's also a major producer of waste. Hospitals, clinics, and surgical centers worldwide contribute to the greenhouse gases, and they generate enormous amount of waste and consume vast amount of energy. And it was estimated if the healthcare sector were a country, it would be the fifth largest emitter in the planet. Now let's turn to ophthalmology specifically. Why is sustainability particularly important in our field? So, as many of you know, ophthalmology is one of the most fast paced and highly demanding specialties. With the aging population and increasing rates of conditions like cataract and glaucoma, we're performing more and more surgeries than ever before. But here's the problem: these surgeries are often resource intensive. Then there is the issue of energy consumption. Ophthalmic surgeries rely on energy intensive equipment. And surgical theaters are often kept under controlled conditions and consume high levels of electricity. And the carbon footprint of running these clinics and hospitals is substantial. Management is another big issue in ophthalmology. A lot of the medical waste we generate isn't recycled, and in many cases, it's not even biodegradable. Now, let's take a moment to understand the sources of healthcare's climate footprint. Every nation's health sector, while different in size and scale, emits different amounts of greenhouse gases, both directly and indirectly. And this happens not just through the delivery of care, but also through the procurement of products, services, and technologies, all of which come from a carbon intensive supply chain. So, when we look at emissions directly from the healthcare facility, like hospitals, clinics, and vehicles they own, this makes up around 17% of the sector's global carbon footprint, which is referred to as Scope 1 emissions. Then we have Scope 2 emissions, which are indirect emissions from purchased energy sources such as electricity, steam, and heating. And this accounts for 12%. But the biggest chunk of emissions, about 71%, comes from the healthcare supply chain. And this includes production, transport, and disposal of all the goods and services the sector relies on, like pharmaceuticals, medical devices, food, chemicals, and hospitals equipment. And this is referred to as Scope 3 emissions. Now let's focus on the environmental impact of cataract surgery, the most commonly performed surgery worldwide, with millions of procedures happening each year, and the demand is only set to rise due to the aging population. This is an area where healthcare providers can make a real difference in sustainability. In 2019 alone, at KKISH, approximately 5,000 eyes were operated on for cataract. This number reflects just one institution and highlighting the scale of cataract surgery and consequently the environmental impact that each procedure can have. The environmental impact of cataract surgery comes from multiple sources. It's not just about the procedure itself. Think about the energy consumed by the machines and buildings where the surgery takes place. Then there is the travel, patient and staff commuting, transportation of surgical products, and even manufacturing of those products plays a role. And on top of that, the use of drugs, surgical supplies, even stationery, all contribute to the carbon footprint. There have only been 4 published studies that have tried to quantify the carbon emissions associated with cataract surgery so far. One of the earliest studies by Somner and colleagues in 2009 compared the carbon footprint of 2 different cataract surgery techniques, phaco versus manual small incision, at 2 centers in Scotland. And their findings were eye-opening. So they measured things like the weight of plastic and paper wasted, and the electricity used by the phaco machine, and the emissions from the patient's travel. And they estimated that a single cataract surgery has a carbon footprint of 78 kilograms of CO2 equivalent, which is about the same emissions produced by a car driving for 550 kilometers, which is about the same distance as driving a car from Riyadh to Hayel. Another study led by Morris and colleagues took a more sophisticated approach. So they analyzed the carbon footprint of cataract surgery at the University Hospital of Wales in Cardiff, and their findings were even higher. They calculated the footprint of a single operation being 182 kilograms of CO2 equivalent, which is about the same as driving a car for 1,300 kilometers. In this case, building and energy use accounted for about 36% of emissions, and travel for 10%, and procurement, mainly medical equipment and pharmaceuticals, made up 54% of the total. So this shows you that the production, transportation, and disposal of medical equipment and drugs have a huge environmental impact in cataract surgery. Another study done in a French university hospital, they calculated the carbon footprint of one cataract surgery at 81 kilograms of CO2 equivalent. And in their analysis, disposable items alone accounted for 73% of the emissions from each procedure. Finally, Prieto and colleagues in Spain found that a single cataract surgery produced around 86.6 kilograms of CO2 equivalent. And also in their findings, medical and pharmaceutical equipment were responsible for a staggering 85% of the greenhouse gas emissions. So, what we learned from these studies is clear. Cataract surgery, while essential for vision restoration, has a considerable environmental impact. And a large portion of this comes from materials and equipment we use. This highlights the need for us to rethink how we perform these surgeries by focusing on reducing waste, improving energy efficiency, and looking into more sustainable materials to lessen the carbon footprint in healthcare. If you're interested in understanding the carbon footprint of cataract packs used in your hospital, the ECRS has made it much easier. They've developed this tool called the Sustainability Index for Disposables in Cataract Surgery. And with this tool, you can input all the details about what's included in your routine cataract pack, and it will calculate for you the carbon footprint produced by it. They've also customized a benchmark recommended cataract pack to help you reduce the environmental impact of cataract surgery. So, this pack is designed to include only what's necessary, helping us cut down on waste. Now, let's turn the corner and look at the environmental impact of glaucoma surgery. While cataract surgery has been widely studied, there's far less data available on the environmental footprint of glaucoma surgery. However, I came across this fascinating study that compared the waste generated during different glaucoma surgeries at two different hospitals or two different locations. One hospital in the United States and the other one is in India, which is the Aravind Eye Hospital. And the results were striking. So, in this study, the authors found that a trap procedure alone produced just 0.5 kilograms of waste in the Indian hospital, compared to triple that amount at 1.5 kilograms in the US hospital for the same procedure. So, what this study tells us is that the environmental impact of the same procedure can vary dramatically depending on where and how it's performed. So, this difference highlights the importance of examining our surgical practice and identify ways we can reduce waste without compromising the patient outcome. So, what about retina surgery? Let's dive into the environmental impact here. The fluorinated gases used in vitreoretina surgery are actually the most potent greenhouse gases in existence, and they have a significant environmental footprint. I want to highlight this multi-center study conducted across 3 centers in the UK, which specifically investigated the retina procedures that use these fluorinated gases. And across 4,800 VR surgeries, the 2 major contributors to emissions were RRD surgery and macular hole repair surgeries. And RRD surgery was responsible for the highest fluorinated gas usage, with each procedure producing an alarming 60 kilograms of CO2 equivalent. Macular hole surgeries followed, producing around 32 kilograms of CO2 emissions per surgery. Breaking it down further, the study found that the 3 main gases used, which is the SF6, C3F8, and C2F6, resulted into different levels of emissions. The SF6 led the pack, with 104 kilograms of CO2 equivalent per procedure, and C3F8 produced 44 kilograms, and C2F6 came in at 23 kilograms per procedure. And while SF6 is the most potent greenhouse gas, it also has the shortest duration of effect compared to the other gases. And this gives it more practical advantage for surgeons and patients despite its high environmental cost. Now, how can we mitigate this impact? One alternative is air tamponade, which has been described for use in both RRD and macular hole repairs. And if air tamponade isn't suitable, another option would be diluting C2F6 or C3F8, which can be adjusted to have a similar duration as SF6. So the take-home message here is that while fluorinated gases are effective, they come with a hefty environmental price tag. So by considering alternatives like air tamponade or diluting other gases, we have the potential to significantly reduce the carbon footprint in retina surgery. Now let's talk about the burden of ophthalmic topical drug waste. Prescription drugs make up about 10% of the healthcare costs in the US. A 2019 study looked into the economic and environmental impact of medication waste, specifically topical, injectable, and systemic drugs, at 4 centers performing cataract surgery. And what they found was eye opening. Nearly half of the medications, all medications, and up to two-thirds of topical drugs were discarded after just one use. And this led to an estimated 195,000 US dollars wasted annually per site. But the problem isn't just about the cost. The environmental impact is staggering too. The study estimated that this kind of drug wastage resulted in between 23 to 105,000 metric tons of CO2 emissions annually in the US alone. And on top of that, this waste can worsen the issue of periodic drug shortage, affecting both patient care and the healthcare cost. Now let's talk about something we often overlook in ophthalmology: the carbon footprint of patients' travel. Now, every time a patient comes in for a checkup, surgery, or follow up visit, the emissions from their travel contribute to our overall environmental impact. Many of our patients travel long distances, sometimes from rural areas to specialized clinics. And these trips can really add up, especially when the patient needs multiple visits. Studies estimated that patient travel accounts for around 10% of the healthcare's total carbon emissions. For every patient traveling by car for an ophthalmology appointment, the average carbon footprint can range from 50 to 450 kilograms of CO2 per visit. So, obviously, depending on the distance. So, multiply that by hundreds or thousands of patients over the year, and you're looking at a significant environmental burden. So, how can we be better? Or maybe the better question is, can ophthalmologists decarbonize eye care? I would dare to say yes, we absolutely can. A recent survey conducted among members of the ECRS found that 99% of respondents expressed concern about global warming and climate change. And this shows you that there's already strong desire within our community to tackle this issue head on. And one key way to decarbonize is by adopting the 7 R's of environmental sustainability: rethink, refuse, reduce, reuse, repair, regift, and recycle. And I've got to be honest, the 7 R's hit close to home for me recently. As I was walking throughout the ECRS exhibition, I came across the most adorable pastel pink portable slit lamp. It was beautiful, but it was 5,000 US dollars. I stopped, I looked, and then I had to ask myself, rethink, do I really need this? And after a long internal debate, I made the tough decision to let it go. So I may not have walked away with a pink portable slit lamp, but I walked away with my sustainable conscience intact. So reducing the carbon footprint in eye care is not just a task for one group. It's a collaborative effort that requires commitment from every stakeholder involved, including ophthalmologists, healthcare staff, facility managers, and suppliers. And in the next few slides, we're going to explore actionable steps we can all take to make our practice more sustainable. Now let's start by looking at how we can address the infrastructure of our healthcare facilities to make them more sustainable. First, we can install sensor lighting and maximize the use of natural light in our clinics and the operating rooms. Obviously, this cuts down on unnecessary electricity use, particularly in areas that are unoccupied for a long period of time. Next, we need to focus on water conservation. So by installing low-flow faucets, this is not only reducing the water waste, but also decreases the energy required to heat the water. So this is even a twofold sustainability benefit. Then there is renewable energy. Shifting to solar power where possible can drastically cut down on carbon emissions. And one of the most significant opportunities for energy saving comes from the way we manage the ventilation system in our operating rooms. Typically, these systems run continuously, even at night or on weekends where the OR is not even in use. This practice wastes electricity and contributes to unnecessary carbon emissions. However, studies have shown that turning off the ventilation system outside working hours and switching it back on only 30 minutes before use offers the same level of infection control as running the system continuously. What about anesthesia? There's growing awareness about the carbon footprint of certain anesthetic gases. And while I couldn't find a specific study focused on ophthalmic anesthesia, there is already a well established guidelines for greening anesthetic practice in general. In ophthalmology, general anesthesia is used infrequently. But when it's necessary, we need to be mindful of the environmental impact. Gases like disflurane and sevoflurane are potent greenhouse gases, and they have a surprisingly large amount of carbon footprint. For example, a 1 hour of disflurane use is equivalent to driving around 370 kilometers in terms of carbon dioxide emissions. So the recommendation is to prioritize lower impact anesthesia options wherever possible. So by choosing alternatives such as regional blocks or avoiding anesthetic gases altogether, when safe and feasible, we can reduce the environmental toll of these gases. Now, we can also make a significant impact in the operating room by implementing several changes aimed at reducing waste and promoting sustainability without compromising the patient care. First, we should move towards using reusable gowns and head covers. The current practice of using disposable ones generate unnecessary waste. And reusables are not only environmentally friendly, but also cost effective in the long run. Another area we can improve on is hand hygiene. The routine use of waterless hand rubs for surgical hand antisepsis has been widely endorsed by many major healthcare organizations. Actually, the WHO has declared waterless chlorhexidine based hand rubs more effective than the traditional water based scrubs. And the current NICE guidelines draft on preventing surgical site infection supports this recommendation. So they're recommending scrubbing at the start of your surgical list, then using alcohol based hand rubs between cases, provided that your hands are not visibly soiled. And instead of using a full body drape during eye surgery, we can opt for a smaller face drape. Studies have shown that around 20% of the waste in eye surgeries comes from drapes. So using smaller ones has several advantages. They reduce gas consumption, lower anxiety and claustrophobia for the patient, and improve comfort by preventing overheating, and ultimately lead to both economic and ecological saving. Additionally, we should reconsider the use of eye shields for post-op patients. Studies have shown that eye shields offer no significant benefit in post-op recovery, especially in uncomplicated cataract surgery. Now there's one final area we can make a significant change, and that's with the packaging of our ophthalmic surgical supplies. Every supply we use, such as IOLs and ophthalmic visco surgical device syringes, comes with a printed instruction for use. And these pamphlets are printed in multiple languages and significantly increase the size and weight of the package. A sensible alternative would be for manufacturers to switch to quick response codes that links to an online electronic instruction. Now, as ophthalmologists, we have a unique opportunity to adopt more efficient practice that not only improve the patient care, but also reduces our environmental footprint. First, we can start by reducing unnecessary investigations and tests that often add to the resource use without providing any real clinical benefit. So, by being more selective with our testing and we are cutting down on waste and focusing on what's truly necessary for our patients. Another step is encouraging patient-initiated follow-ups. So rather than routine visits that may not be needed, we can give the patient more control over their follow-ups, especially if things are going well. This can reduce unnecessary clinic visits and free up resources. Now, when it comes to cataract surgery, performing bilateral cataract surgery when it's feasible and safe can also significantly cut down on the number of patient visits and reduce the energy use related to transportation and facility operations. A one-stop pre-op assessment is another great way to streamline care. So instead of having patients to come in for multiple appointments, we can combine their assessment into a single visit, saving both time and resources. And we should really reevaluate the use of high-tech technologies like femtosecond laser or intraoperative OCT. If they don't significantly improve the patient outcome, we should consider whether their use is justified in terms of cost and environmental impact. Finally, building a strong doctor-patient relationship is crucial. So by fostering open communication and trust, we can avoid overdiagnosis and overtreatment. This allows us to offer more tailored, efficient care without added burden of unnecessary interventions. Now, intravitreal injections are one of the most common procedures performed in ophthalmology, but they also come with a significant environmental consequences in terms of waste generation and carbon emissions. So we need to start asking ourselves, do we really need all of these disposables? A group from the Netherlands, founded the Dutch Working Group on Sustainable Ophthalmology, published best practice guidelines on how to administer intravitreal injections in a safe and sustainable way. And they categorized the equipment used in the intravitreal injection into three groups: essential, optional, and superfluous or unnecessary. And I want to bring your attention to the pre and post injection antibiotics. They were labeled as unnecessary. There's increased evidence that topical antibiotics given before or after the intravitreal injection are ineffective in preventing endophthalmitis. And they're actually possibly harmful by increasing the development of resistant organisms. And when we talk about sustainability in glaucoma care, we have a real opportunity to make a difference. One great example is this light randomized control trial, which compared SLT to IOP lowering eye drops in patients newly diagnosed with open angle glaucoma. So typically, eye drops are first line treatment for glaucoma, but this study showed that SLT is a highly effective, sustainable alternative. Over the course of 36 months, around 700 patients were randomized into two groups. One group received SLT as the primary treatment, and the other group were treated with medications first. And the results were that SLT provided stable, drop free control of IOP for 74% of patients over 3 years. Even more compelling, SLT was found to be more cost effective than medications. It saved around £450 per patient by reducing the need for follow up treatments. And none of the patients in the SLT group required glaucoma surgery, during the trial at least, compared to 11 patients in the medication group. So, based on this study, by moving towards a laser first approach, we can reduce our reliance on single use medical products, cut costs for both the healthcare system and our patients, and offer effective long term control of glaucoma. Now, at an organizational level, institutions can take some impactful steps to prioritize sustainability. First, it's essential that we partner with suppliers who place sustainability at the forefront of their practice. We should also focus on sourcing locally whenever possible. This reduces the emissions tied to transportation. Another key strategy is using instruments designed for durability and reusability. And expanding telemedicine services is another powerful tool we have. By offering more virtual consultations and follow ups, we can significantly reduce the need for patient to travel. We can also consider decentralizing post-operative care, allowing patients to access follow-ups services at clinics closer to their home. Now let's talk about the key challenges we face when trying to implement sustainability in eye care, and more importantly, how can we overcome them? There are three main areas that often cause hesitation: cost, safety, and concept inertia, or the resistance to change. First, let's talk about cost. Sustainability options like reusable equipment often seem more expensive upfront. But here's the thing: we need to focus on long term saving. So while the initial investment might be higher, the ongoing use of reusable tools and reduced waste management costs add up to a significant saving over time. Next is safety. This is a big concern in the medical field, and rightfully so. Many are worried that switching to reusables or low tech options might compromise infection control or patient safety. However, with the right sterilization protocol and updated guidelines, reusables can be just as safe as their disposable counterparts. Lastly, there is the natural resistance to change. A lot of us are used to doing things in a certain way, and it can be hard to break old habits. But change is possible through education and evidence. So when we share data showing how sustainable practice save money, protect the environment, and maintain high quality care, it becomes much easier to shift our mindset. So now I want to ask the audience, by show of hands, how many of you think that we can reuse phaco tips if they were labeled as single use? Okay, so I have one, two, three. So, few of you think that's يعني possible. And now I'd like to share with you the results of this interesting study that explored the ultrastructural changes in phacotypes after multiple use. So, in this study, 8 types of phacotypes were analyzed using identical experimental protocol. So, after repeated use on porcine cataractus lenses, the results showed no significant structural damage on either single use or multiple use phacotypes after 5 cycles. So, in conclusion, the study demonstrated that the reuse of phacotypes did not lead to significant ultrastructural damage, whether they were labeled as single use or multiple use. So, the findings of this study suggest that some manufacturers might randomly label a certain phacotype as single use despite the ability to withstand multiple procedures. So this raises important question about the scientific basis for such labeling, especially when other manufacturers label ultrastructurally identical phacotype for multiple uses. So now I want to highlight a truly remarkable model of sustainable eye care. In Aravind Eye Hospital, which is located in southern India, they're globally recognized for providing high quality, high volume eye surgeries at a low cost. So, just to give you a sense of their operational efficiency, each surgeon operates on 2 tables, assisted by a team of 4 highly trained mid level ophthalmic personnel. So, while the physician is working on one table, the second is being prepared for the next patient. So, with this approach, they're able to handle an astonishing 750 up to 1,500 surgeries per day. But what's really impressive is how they integrate sustainability into every aspect of their operation. For example, they reuse stainless steel instrument, syringes, phacotips after washing and sterilizing them in a 30-minute autoclave cycle. And their surgical gloves are sterilized with antiseptic gel between cases and disposed of after 10 uses. Even the caps, masks, gowns, and sandals worn by the surgical team, as well as the patient blankets, are laundered and reused daily. So, to give you a comparison, in the UK, a single cataract surgery generates greenhouse gas emissions equivalent to driving a car for 700 kilometers. While at Aravind Eye Hospital, a cataract surgery produces just 0.25 kilograms of solid waste, which is the equivalent of 6 kilograms of CO2 emissions, about the same as driving a car for 25 kilometers. And all of this is achieved with comparable or even better patient outcomes at a lower cost. In fact, their endophthalmitis rate was reported to be 0.01%, which is significantly lower than the rate reported by the American Academy of Ophthalmology IRIS registry, which is 0.04%. So this shows you that you can provide excellent care while being environmentally conscious. Another key part of their sustainability effort is the expansion into rural and remote areas. So they're installing 100 new vision centers, each serving around 45 to 50,000 people. And these centers are run by 2 mid-level ophthalmic personnel who perform basic screening tests and are connected to the hospital through telemedicine. So this minimizes patient travel for follow-ups, reducing the overall carbon footprint. So in conclusion, the Aravind Eye Hospital has shown us that high-quality care can be delivered sustainably, and their innovative use of reusable instruments, energy-efficient process, and decentralized care models dramatically reduce the waste and emissions. With an endophthalmitis rate of 0.01%, they're achieving better clinical outcomes while spending less and being kinder to the environment. So, in conclusion, the journey towards sustainability in ophthalmic care is both urgent and achievable. By integrating sustainable practice into every aspect of our work, from surgical procedures to resource management, we can reduce our environmental impact while maintaining the highest standards of patient care. As a global leader in ophthalmic care, KKESH has a unique opportunity to set a precedent for greener practice, ensuring that our interventions not only restore vision, but also safeguard the health of our planet. And the future of ophthalmology lies in our ability to innovate responsibly and sustainably, creating a lasting positive impact for both our patients and the environment. Thank you for listening, and I hope today's lecture has shed light on the importance of sustainability in eye care and how each of us has a role in making a difference in future generations. And to help you in your own sustainability journey, I'd like to share with you a discount code for reusable surgical caps created by Saudi brand. And these caps are not just practical, they're also easy step towards reducing waste in the OR. Thank you all for your attention.
Thank you so much, Dr. Sara. Saraha, the talk is very inspiring and it has a lot of tips. Does any one of the attendees have any questions for Dr. Sara?
Thank you very much, Dr. Sara, for this amazing lecture and presentation. It's a topic that we don't usually speak about, but it have a significant importance. Also, I want to shed light on there is some like reusable and re-sterilizable phaco packs as well. I think using like something that the company would accept would be also more acceptable for the physician, for the patient, and maybe for the institute and for everyone as well. There's always, like as you mentioned, option for reducing the disposable instrument and avoiding opening unnecessary instrument and equipment as well. So thanks again for this amazing lecture.
Thank you for your comment. I completely agree.
Thank you very much, Dr. Sara, for excellent information and new subjects, which is very important. And I think 1,000-mile distance start with one step. And in our hospital, we have excellent departments in surgery and other helping department like infection control committee. So most of these things can be done in collaboration with the infection control committee and also with bylaws. So if anything happen like re-sterilization, it's something which really I always against it, especially in private, because this is will generate money and with less cost, unless it is well controlled and well studied and to be with the good sterilization department in either even in our hospital everywhere. And the problem, it's not just only ophthalmology. This is a generalized things. You have it in medicine and surgery everywhere. So it is hospital wise, it is house also, it's other things. So it's not a purely related to the ophthalmology or to the hospital. It's something in general. And we are lucky in this country, alhamdulillah. We have all the government which is taking care of the people. Even the last is the greenhouse, which is something which is good and will help for human health. The things which I'm sure we can make steps of these things and which can be applied, and we can apply it. We shouldn't wait till, because like caps and reuse it can be done. And also re-sterilization can be done. So I hope we have, even from the medical administration, Dr. Masirao, to set a group and find these things and apply it one by one, so we can start. Why not? Before others. And thank you again for your nice lecture.
Thank you for your comment, Dr. Said.
I have a comment. Okay. Thank you, Dr. Sara. Very inspiring. I wanted to ask you, is there any accreditation organization for this kind of approach, like Sibahi and GSIA?
You mean this, like sterilization guidelines or anything like that?
Green hospitals.
I haven't come across anything local. There are like international organizations taking care or like have focused on sustainability, but nothing local or national, at least, that I came across.
Okay.
I came across some reports, like through my Google search, in some private hospitals having like sustainability teams and generating sustainability reports and their percentages and all. But I haven't seen any governmental sector report on that.
Okay, I think this will push other hospitals to gain it, like the other accreditations.
Yes.
Thanks a lot, Dr. Sarah. Excellent presentation,
Thank
really
you.
eye-opening for most of us.
Thank
And
you.
it's a recent theme going on for the last few years. I'm usually not a villain or a bad guy in most of the talks, but here I want to be, and I wish Dr. Kirat was here as well, because he always sort of criticizes on not on the presentation. I mean,
know
it's the
on the
idea behind it, basically. And you know that, I mean, I'm going to be probably take a few minutes if you don't mind. It's just like the same issue with the drugs, with the nutrition. So sometimes the fats become the bad guys, sometimes the carbs are bad guys, sometimes the fats are good. So we are going in circle and circle. So same thing, I mean, here the big companies have got these KPIs or motives to promote sort of a green economy and green environment, because they are getting funds for that, and they sort of generate these ideas, and incentives are given by the governments, by the big companies. But I just want to give one example, that one bomb dropped on any country generates more carbon than sort of a million FACOs done. So our focus is totally different at the moment. And other thing is, they have very again, I'm not a conspiracy theorist. I don't believe that the earth is flat. I don't believe that the greenhouse effect is not there. It is there. But they have pushed us, and I don't want to say who they, our bright minds, to move to these things which can be easily done by people with are not so intelligent like you and the rest of the people sitting here. And that is very important. I mean, we need to focus, like I would say, Sarah working on some sort of endothelium or stroma or something like that. But again, this is something probably you feel it is closer to your heart, and you want to do it, and you want to show that it can have an impact. Irwin model, I mean, if Sabahi comes, they certainly they're gonna shut the hospital. Okay, like 4 ORs running in the same room. Okay, so not changing gown, stuff like that. And again, it is the same thing. Is it regression or progression? Like 50 years ago, it was done in the States. Then they moved. Then efficiency came, and they moved to doing quick surgeries, disposable instruments, because the time comes. So I don't know whether we are running in a circle or whether we are progressing, but I think ophthalmology itself, although it is a right step in the right direction, but the greenhouse impact of us cutting down is not even 0.001% compared to what the huge companies and the Western countries are doing to the whole world.
Yeah, so I don't want to bring politics into this. So we're all here probably ophthalmologists and working the ophthalmic field. So that's why I brought this. I truly believe that taking a single step can help the larger picture, even if it's so
No,
small and tiny.
I totally agree.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a right step in the right direction. I agree with that. Yes.
Dr. Sosin?
Thank you. Thank you very much, Dr. Sarah. That was wonderful.
Thank you.
Everything, the whole presentation, your tone, the way you approach the subject, going from, the global perspective to the medical perspective and to the, primary ophthalmology perspective. I think your lecture is timely. I do agree a little bit with Dr. Ahad, not completely, but I am a simple person, and I tend to think that, when something doesn't make sense to common sense, which I believe is common sense, then I shouldn't do it. So, for instance, I do believe that, each one of us can do small steps, to maybe not affect the carbon, footprint, but actually to decrease waste, and I used to work, I've seen how it's done in Tunisia. My husband is Tunisian, and I did medical, as part of my medical studies in Tunisia, and I know how to do cataract surgery. And I remember at the time that to decrease waste, cataract surgeries had to be performed 2 at a time, not in the same room, but 2 at a time. And the tenor nylon had to be cut in 2, and each surgeon was given half because you don't want to waste. Helon was also a very, very expensive commodity. And here, of course, when when you come to Kekish, alhamdulillah, there's a lot of abundance. You can ask for and almost as many Hilon, syringes as you want.
Yeah.
So the thing is that there is waste. Because we are so much used to using minims, we are so much to using single use equipment. We don't think that, well, maybe we can do it with just bottles as long as we don't touch the person's eyes. And especially when the COVID thing came, then there was a huge increase in waste, in my opinion, particularly with the use of masks and gloves and things like this. So just thinking about the oceans and the fish, I decided that I'm not going to throw my gloves away. If I do an injection and I have a pair of gloves, instead of putting it in the waste and it goes to suffocate some animals in the sea or create more waste, I started to collect my gloves, wash them at home, reuse them as reusable gloves, not to do injections because they're never sterile, but at least I wouldn't be using disposable gloves for every patient. And so that was my tip. The other thing is what I do is that I agree with you that for patients to come, particularly with companions, to come to an appointment and then have to come back and travel to get their treatment or to be seen by another doctor in another specialty, that is for me a huge waste. So I tend to be a little pushy when people come to me and for instance they need laser. Instead of giving them an appointment in 1 month or putting them on the waiting list, I kind of force them, so to speak, to come the next day because I have a laser clinic the next day and I do it the next day, and I argue with them that I'm not going to have you go pay travel whether by air or by thing. You're going to do it now and then you only can have to come back to me in 2 to 3 months, for instance, or not at all. And if there's a consultation, then I'd rather that it's done then, and I tend to call my colleagues for consultation on the day of, so that the patients don't have to travel again to get another opinion by another subspecialty. And I think the hospital can do something about this. I think the fact that we have a lot of patients on our lists does not give us the breath, to accept patients when we are not on call from other colleagues, to give a meaningful consultation. But if we had less patients per list, okay, and we take a kind of an honor decision among us that if somebody calls us, we are going to take that extra person on our list, I can tell you that our waiting list will go down. Okay, because now we have freed that future, slot for somebody else, and the patient would have had a much better treatment, just like in private. In private, people don't let their patients go; they want to make sure that they get the maximum out of this. So I think that is something that I think the administration should look into. Definitely, using reusable gowns and all the things that you mentioned, I definitely agree with it. Reusing gloves as disposable gloves is something that I do. Managing the waiting list in a different way, managing the OPC in a different way. And then again, also remember that with drugs and with equipment, the companies are driven by profitability. So of course they are going to ask you to use single use things to make more profit. So this we just have to use our common sense. Maybe not for the carbon footprint, but at least for the environmental waste. I would hate to see that we waste so much. But again, thank you very much. I very much enjoyed your lecture. I'm sure the whole audience agrees with me. Thank you so much
for your comments, Dr. Sarsan.
Thank you.
Assalamu alaikum. Sorry, I took a call because I'm on call, so I wasn't listening to most of what Dr. Nulati. So forgive me, please, if I say something that she's already said. One thing that I raised to the Spending Efficiency Committee long time ago, and I never got a reply, was the idea of using lubricant drops as a pacifier for any upset patient. This is something that is really like patients walk around with like multiple boxes of very expensive lubricant drops that they probably they don't need. They don't have like cicatricial eye disease. They don't have anything sinister causing and it's simple dryness because most of our area is dry. And sometimes if the patient is upset or they wanted to walk out with the prescription, instead of arguing with them for another 10 minutes that they don't need it, we prescribe. And this is, I think we can save, without any exaggeration, hundreds or even thousands of like reals just by dispensing lubricant drops to patients who do have proper dry eye disease, which is, something that only should be reserved to be decided upon by either comprehensive or anterior segment physicians instead of everybody getting lubricant drops.
I totally agree.
So hopefully at one point in time, we're just going to wake up and notice that this huge leaking point in our budget is going to be plugged, and we end up, One other thing is that I noticed that after the recent Sibahi, checkup on our hospital, they changed the faucet in the laser clinic. I don't know about the other areas because this is where I work. And they changed the faucets from chrome ones to black ones, which I didn't really see the point of doing that. Instead, they should have installed the ones with infrared sensor, so they only open when there is a hand underneath, and then they just close. And this will also diminish the risk of infection and so on, because you don't have to handle it by hand to open it.
The knobs, yes.
But again, nobody, so I totally agree with you. I mean, one thing that we need to highlight is also this. This is something also when the campaign for Jamiyat Ihsan, or whatever they call it, they started distributing plastic bottles for patients as free water for all. And I don't know whether this is right or wrong, because I read it on the internet while I was falling asleep, but it says that part of our human brain now has some plastic particles in it. And we might end up all with early onset Alzheimer at some point because of this. One of the things that even I was happily surprised when I visited Europe for the ASRS, I found out that they have a new regulation that all the plastic caps are now tightly attached.
Yeah, to the bottom.
Yeah, so the cap itself doesn't really fall out, and then eventually, if there is any recycling project, the pieces are put together and recycled together. I hope we wake up one day and we found a greener policy and greener environment. So thank you very much for mentioning this.
You're welcome. Thank you so much. I think Dr. Abdullah has a comment.
Thank you, Dr. Sarah. I really like the talk. It is a new talk. But I have also another comment. Like, if I ask you personally, will you prefer to be treated at Kekesh or at Irvin or like in India?
I would rather to go to India. They have 0.01% in the ophthalmitis.
I have been in India. I have been in India.
I've been to India.
And
that's
I
me,
didn't
actually.
like the idea, or at least what we are taught is not maybe totally correct, or what we understand about sterility. I saw the numbers.
I want to show you that I was there. It was me. That's me in 2018.
So, I saw the numbers, and we see our practice. As Dr. Ahad mentioned, we don't want to go to regression. Like, you don't want to, for the privacy of the patient, you don't want 4 patients in the same room to be operated. So some of the things that we are doing, I agree that we are spending more. Maybe we have more gas, but also for other terms, we want patient privacy and also sterility. Like, I know the companies, they are manufacturing a lot of disposable instruments. But if you ask me personally, like, would you like to use something that has been in someone's eyes before, and or you want something new, which is, I think new is better. This is what I think. I'm not totally sure, okay? Especially for things that cannot be totally cleaned. Like some instrument, it has a lot of cares that you can clean it. But some of the instruments, like tubes, the one we use in phaco, that there is the problem. It's not the steel itself. It is the tubes. It's the back. It's so those things. I believe we still need to use those consumables, and some of those consumables are. I think they are better for even for cleaning, because when you clean this, you need autoclave. You need another machines to clean the disposable. You need water to wash the disposable gowns. You need people to work. So it has a lot of cost as well. So it's not, if you look at it from one point, you might see it very nice, but the other point also has a downside.
Yeah, I completely agree with most of your points. the case study that I've presented might be like an extreme case of being sustainable. Of course, you would not want like a relative of yours, especially a female, being like in a room with a male patient, for instance. But I think that we can learn from these the case studies, because they've proven that scientifically and with evidence that it's doable and possible, and it saves money. And I've demonstrated that in multiple studies.
I think another way of looking at it is, can we eliminate FACO? And at the time is coming. Recently, they've done a phase 1 and phase 2, phase 1.5 in US, where they have used the drops to revert the cataract. Okay, so hopefully, maybe in 10 years' time, we won't be talking about phaco surgeries. Maybe not 10, maybe perhaps in 15, 20 years, there won't be any phaco surgery. So that is probably a step forward where we can eliminate the risk. Yeah, and that is progression. That is not regression. So hopefully, again, I mean, joke aside, I mean, regressive was about certain things which we do, and then coming back, like when the plastic first came, it was a big invention. Now the plastic is the biggest enemy, isn't it? So we always find 50 years afterwards what is the villain and who is the hero, basically. Thank you.
There is one point about the Aravand hospital, the eye care system. See, it said that they used the same glove for 10 procedures, and they cleaned it in between. And they said they have an amazing number where there's the incidence of the endophthalmitis is very low to them. But however, I think we need to keep into account that we're talking about a rural area. And it says that they are being examined and screened.
It's not a rural area. They have centers in rural areas, but the hospital itself is in a big city.
But can we trust, and how reliable is the endophthalmitis incidence? That's the thing.
You definitely have to critically appraise any article that you read, but this has been like studied and investigated by amazing authors who are well known in the field. So I would trust them. I would trust their results.
Then we need to find out why America has more endophthalmitis if they're using better sterility. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you all very much. Thank you.